Thank you, Nigel. In fact, thank you to Fox Williams and the other sponsors of tonight's event. Events where you have to reorganise the venue are usually a good sign, and certainly looking at the crowd tonight, it's great to see so much interest being paid to this topic. But I'd like to talk tonight over the next 20 minutes or so about Californian losers, about cricket, about warm beer, and about McGuffins. So you'll need to sort of bear with me as I try and string those themes together. But I suppose the Californians come in from the relevance here is the quote which I think has been attributed to me on some of the material you've got with you, or that I've always felt that it would be no higher pleasure than building a business here that got to the stage that was taking over its American competitors rather than being on the receiving end of things. And to that end, I know there's a lot of sort of generalized enthusiasm among some people in the room, for example, about wouldn't it be great if the next Facebook or Google or whatever was coming out of the UK. And I'm afraid that I don't believe that can happen. Or I certainly don't believe it's wise betting on it happening. I'm afraid I think that if you're trying to beat the Californians at their own game, you're going to lose. And so actually there are very few there are actually many Californian losers, but the winners in the pure tech space do tend to be Californian. By that I mean American, certainly West Coast. And I think that trying to replicate that here is a mug's game. So I want to tackle a sort of more narrow question, which is how does one set up a business here and make it successful, especially when that involves essentially pushing water uphill against the Californians if one isn't careful. I'm not going to dwell too much on why I think the Californians win in straight fights, but it's a scale argument, it's a clustering argument. And I think if I were to sort of tell people in this room, for example, that there was an event a bit like this in California where a bunch of Californians were trying to figure out how to beat London at the game of being a global professional services and finance hub. Much as we all rate the Californians, I don't think we'd necessarily rate their chances too highly. London has lots of innate advantages in what it's good at, and California has innate advantages in what it's good at. So I feel like trying to beat the Californians is a mug's game. What you're looking for is something which makes you special. I suppose, was it John Major who said that cricket and warm beer made the UK special? I mean, I personally don't see those as the strongest aspects of the UK, but you are looking for something. You're looking for a business that can attack an opportunity where there's something different about its industry. And I think that in my first business came about. Fletcher Research was a research company focusing on the internet. Came about because. Or at least the strategy we followed, not initially, but soon afterwards, which was to provide the UK corporate market with research and analysis about the internet in the UK, came about because organisations like the BBC or Lloyds Bank or Kingfisher or British Telecom didn't want to, for their 5-year projection, to take an American projection and divide it by 5 and slide it right 2 years. Which is what we were all doing at that point, and certainly back at McKinsey where I was. And they wanted to get localised specialist knowledge because they saw the UK as a different market which would have different twists and turns. And recognising that, we were able to actually build a business that focused on being a UK-centric research firm specialising in the internet. And we ended up quite quickly becoming the leader in that space, certainly measured in terms by the size of the analyst team that we devoted to it, or the amount of data that we collected about it. And I certainly didn't know then what I know now, but I think looking back on it, that whole pitch to our clients that the UK isn't just the 51st state of America and has a different set of customers, different set of companies, different set of financial regulations, legal regulations, was actually what enabled us to build a business. And I think that if you look, for example, at one of the 3 biggest technology businesses in the UK, Sage, you could see exactly that same dynamic going on. Sage is capitalised on the fact that the accounting regulations and practices in the UK operate very differently from in the US, or at least they used to. And that has enabled them to defend themselves against American software businesses, because from an American software business point of view, localizing your accounting software for every country in the world is a very unscalable activity, and that gives an opportunity to Sage in the UK or Pyramid in Scandinavia or so on and so forth. And that's why Sage has been able to build a multi-billion-pound tech business in the software field, despite the existence of Californians. The other classic one for me that marks a defensive barrier against the Californians is the postal system. And both Love Film and Gray's, more recently for me, have been good examples of where we can really build successful businesses because of the need of each business to provide a service for its customers, which you can only really do through a service like the Royal Mail. And the Royal Mail doesn't provide that service globally. No business provides that business globally. The next closest equivalent to it, the couriers charge far, far more for an inferior service. And we, as a result of that, it's hard for a Californian business like Netflix to offer a UK service from California. And as a result of that, I mean, that dynamic obviously changes now that DVDs are getting replaced by streaming services. But the existence of that DVD opportunity was what enabled us to build an opportunity now to defend ourselves against Netflix in the UK, and that comes about fundamentally because the Post is one of those things that makes the UK special. The Royal Mail is actually a very, very good provider by international standards, and that gave us the defences we needed to build a successful business. And actually, while I'm on that theme, I suppose the other one example where I think about this is Zoopla, where actually Zoopla was not first to market from a global point of view. There were some very able Californians well ahead of us. But the fact that the property market, again, varies by geography, and we have the Land Registry Office in England and Wales, for example, that operates in a very different way from how it operates in the US. That gives us some defences against the Californians and ensures that the markets for property generally and valuation data in particular are very localised, national boundaries, and the UK and Australia are the biggest markets outside America, and they operate very differently to America. Thank goodness. So I'm less focused now on how one buys American businesses and more focused on how one defends oneself against the onslaughts of the Californians. But even if one's identified a sector where, for example, it's the Post would be a critical factor, or you're in property, or something where you can point to the differences between here and how the Californians would look at it, that's still not enough. And in Love Film's case, for example, when I first looked at that space, which was back in 2002, there were 4 companies already in that market. There were 4 mom and pop shop types doing DVD rental through the Post, and I didn't really understand how I was going to beat them. The Zoopla, in fact, another good example. We launched Zoopla in 2008, and we were number 12 to market or something. Rightmove had all the network effects in that space, but there's a bunch of wannabe Rightmoves snapping around from prime location downwards, and we launched into. I don't think we were even number 12. I think we were number 19 or something when we launched. So you're still not enough to have identified a sector that gives you defences against the Californians and has some equivalent of cricket and warm beer, but you need your McGuffin. Hands up here who's heard of a McGuffin. So not many Hitchcock fans in the audience. McGuffin is a Hitchcock term. Hitchcock talks about all good films have a McGuffin. And when you ask him what a McGuffin is, he doesn't really want to tell you. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to use allegories to explain what I mean by a McGuffin. But really what I mean by McGuffin is you need some magic ingredient that gives you an ability to come, as Zoopla has, from number 19 to number 2 at the moment, and watch this space. Rightmove will be we're after you. And in Love Film's case, of course, we were able to overtake the first 4 guys. Well, in fact, we bought 2 of them, but anyway, that was one way of doing it. But we needed a way of doing that. So sort of how does one do that? And in Love Film's case, actually, the sort of magic ingredient came about through my business partner, who managed to negotiate. This was before we had a team, before we had money, before we had a brand, before we had anything. My business partner negotiated an exclusive distribution deal to put flyers in DVD players that was being sold across the UK over an exclusive period, and it was with a supplier that had a 1/3 market share of all DVD players sold in the UK. So there were going to be 2 million DVD players per year for 2 years sold with our flyers in it, out of a total of 6 million a year. And that, when you actually did the maths, at least as optimistically as certainly the way my business partner was looking at it, we were going to break even from that deal alone in year one. So that was going to catapult us past the existing 4 players. And that story, that agreement, legal agreement, commercial agreement, exclusive arrangement, enabled us to raise more money than any of the other 4 people had. It enabled us to hire a better team than anybody else had. And actually, by the time it became clear to us that the container ships with these DVD players coming over from China hadn't got lost at sea, and that in fact, yes, our flyers had got put in the DVD players and they hadn't got lost at source, and yes, these DVD players were being bought in the shops, but despite all that, nobody was signing up through this system. It didn't really matter because at that point we had more money than anybody else, we had a better team than anybody else, we had better technology than anybody else, and actually by that point, our McGuffin, if you like, had shifted into being the lowest cost provider. We had the best technology. We still do have the best, at least from a fulfillment point of view, we have the best technology in the world for that space. We're well ahead of Netflix and Amazon, and we include Amazon these days, so I must get used to that. Anyway, by that point we had a different McGuffin, which was the technology platform that we'd been able to build from scratch, including actually quite a lot of former Amazon alums who helped us do that, But no, that ingredient early on, the agreement we had with a provider called Box Media was absolutely crucial to us lifting ourselves above the crowd and getting past those first 4 players. In Zoopla's case, the McGuffin, if you like, early on was launching them into the market with a free automated valuation tool that lets anybody value any residential property in the UK for free instantaneously, and none of the other players had that. And of course, everybody in this country talks about property. I think they probably think about it more than they think about sex, if you read some of the surveys the way I do. But it's absolutely crucial USP that to have your to be able to let people value their mother-in-law's property for free online while they're at work, and that was what drove traffic to our site. And actually, our business plan in the early days, quite frankly, was smoke and mirrors. But by the time we had all that traffic, we were able to parlay our way into a proper business plan. We acquired Property Finder, which gave us a lot of assets that were very helpful to us. And from there, we've really been able to represent a proper challenge to Rightmove. And if we get our way and are able to merge, as we hope, with the prime location business owned by the Daily Mail, then we really will be a proper challenger up against one of the strongest tech businesses that's been created in the UK. So that McGuffin of an evaluation algorithm actually remains to this day very important to us. It's a big part of what makes the site special. It's not the only thing anymore, but it is a big differentiator for us. And the algorithm for that is absolutely proprietary to us and was developed by one of the, I think certainly given my experience at McKinsey and Forrester, I think I can fairly safely say it's one of the smartest statistical teams in the world, and that algorithm is proprietary to us, run out of San Francisco, and is absolutely crucial McGuffin for our successes. And more recently, Secret Escapes has been a wonderful example of this too. Secret Escapes has launched actually almost exactly a year ago, and is a members-only luxury travel club for UK people online. And we were launching to a very crowded space with Groupon and Jet Setter and Voyage Privé and all sorts of people around. But we've been able to come on to create the leading UK position in that space, and we've done that because we spun it out of another business, and we were able to kick it off with nearly 1 million members who we'd essentially soft opted into the system, and it gave us the leverage to go and secure these incredible deals with luxury travel providers. And actually the members had already signed up for travel deals, but they were being offered by our previous business publicly available deals. So we were able to go to the members and say, it's got even better than this. We're offering you members-only deals now, even better. And we were able to go to the hotels and say, because we're turning this into a private club, we expect you to give us deals that you would be too embarrassed to see publicly available online. The whole thing worked beautifully, and the business has kicked off amazingly well. And again, I think that McGuffin of what's special about us is we kick off with 1 million members. That's 4 times bigger than the next biggest player. Has enabled us to again hire a great team, raise a decent amount of money, and hit the ground running. And I won't bore you all with the intricacies of hedge funds, but my sort of day job these days at Oxalist, where we're building an internet-driven hedge fund, again, we're trying to use that same thinking around what makes us special, and it comes down to trying to combine internet technologies into the world of hedge funds, which hasn't happened before in a credible way, and again, actually is really unlikely to happen in California, because they have hardly any hedge funds in California, thank goodness, and they have hardly any internet businesses in New York. So the sort of natural place for that to happen is I think in London, and we've been able to recruit a team I think much more easily in London to do that than we would have been able to stateside. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I think I've hopefully been able to give you a bit of a flavour here for how I'm not trying to build the next Google, Amazon, eBay, Facebook. I don't think I would stand a chance. I think I rate those businesses, think that they're set up in the right place, and that's for a reason. Actually, the other example I haven't given on that front is Betfair, which deserves mention, not for all the self-inflicted woes it's inflicted upon itself in the last 12 months, but for the fact that it too is one of the most successful tech startups based over here, and of course it was actually set up by Americans who, no, that's not quite true, sorry, but part of that business was set up by Americans who wanted to set up in America, but it was illegal to build such a business in America, so they came here. And the big online betting business, the successful ones, are all based in Europe. Or the legal ones, sorry, are all based in Europe, and there's a good reason for that, which is that America's outlawed them, and they've now got themselves into a position where actually, even if America deregulates, which is looking more and more likely, the European businesses are going to give the Californians a very good run for their money, because they've got the scale, they've got the technology, they've got the brand names now, and the Californians are going to be pushing water uphill themselves on that particular space if they choose to enter the market legally. So I've covered, I hope most of the points I wanted to get across. I've got a couple of minutes for any questions, otherwise I'm going to hand back to the chair. In fairness, I think the teams that I think of as the teams I've been luckiest to work with haven't necessarily cost a lot of money. That being said, I had a meeting this morning where the team that was being proposed have all got an astonishing experience, and the combined salaries of that team is going to be £1.5 million. And we actually had a very animated discussion this morning about, is that right? As big a team, and a very successful one of the businesses I'm lucky enough to work with, the combined payroll on day one salary of that team was about £350,000. So, and 7 people. So it really doesn't necessarily cost a lot of money, but I am generally always, I'm always chasing the money. I'm always trying to bring in. I'm not leaving revenue for mañana for the time when some dozy American buys this business. I'm trying to get the revenue now. So I'm trying to make things cash generative, and you're generally looking at each person on the basis of are they going to bring in the money that pays for them. In tech businesses, you're often able to throw skill and talent at a problem rather than experience, and skill and talent costs, I'm plucking numbers out here, £30,000 to £50,000 rather than double or triple that. You are often able to put equity on the table instead of cash. At Love Film, I was very fortunate in that one of the very best guys I had was our tech guy, who's now at Zupa actually, had left Amazon earlier, but had actually made quite a bit of money at Amazon out of his stock options, and so his immediate salary needs were not high, and we were able to do a deal with him on that basis. Another key hire of mine was a fairly junior person at Amazon whose salary expectations were not high and who proved fantastic for us, but I think her CV was relatively junior, but I knew that the experience she'd have got in an organisation like that was great, and I had a great recommendation from a very senior guy who I couldn't afford. So I think I haven't generally had to pay too much. In the hedge fund world, all bets are off. That's terrifying, and one of the difficulties there is the whole funding dynamics and payroll dynamics are just eye-watering in comparison with what you can do in more tech-driven businesses. I think there's no question that the cost of capital is cheaper in California, by which I mean there's more of it and it's easier to raise. But my experience is, I don't think that the Californians have necessarily a higher hit rate than here. I think that, if anything, I actually think the hit rate might be higher here, because I think that I think the lower cost of capital there means people are more prepared to back businesses which haven't got a chance. And I think here, if you just, a pre-revenue business, as they always think of themselves, thinks, oh, it's frightfully difficult to raise money. What the investors are always thinking is, this thing's not a business. And I think here, if you have a plan which shows you're building a real business, especially if you talk about words like profit and break even, which a frightening amount of people don't, I don't think it's impossible to get money, especially in London. There is money. The tax breaks around EIS are actually quite favourable, better and better known. The VCT funds do a decent job of popularising that. You've got the American venture firms who everybody knows. You've got an increasing number of angels out there. So my take is, the guys who moan about it's impossible to get money, what they're really saying is, I couldn't find anybody stupid enough. And I think that the best plans do get money here, and they don't spend 50 million; they'll spend 5. And that's actually part of why I say, actually, if you're in one of those sorts of businesses where you're up against a Californian who's got 50, then that's not helpful. That's one of the reasons why the Californians are likely to beat you. But you shouldn't need to spend the 50. I mean, again, Californians raise too much money and spend it too much. Netflix spent something like $300 million getting to break even. Love Film, even though, believe me, there are plenty of mistakes along that way, and we raised too much money. Even though we raised much more than we actually really needed, we still only raised less than $50 million. And our platform was better than Netflix's certainly on the many counts, and not all of them, and not necessarily. To be fair to Netflix, they obviously became a bigger website with costs associated with it. But I don't feel that the climate of fundraising is all doom and gloom here. Certainly not relative to other European countries. I think if you're in London, it can be done. You just need to focus on building a successful business and show people that you have a plan to do that soon, rather than when you've got lots of users and but right now you haven't worked out how you're ever going to get your money out of them. That's probably it for me on time. I'll be around later on if people have got further questions. Thanks everybody for their attention. Cheers.